Nobody fear me if he is a good Greek citizen. For everyone who is traitor, I don't care.
Golden Dawn is Greece's extreme right party. It's famous for fascist salutes and attacks on immigrants by its supporters. The party has exploited Greece's debt crisis and anger about uncontrolled immigration to become the third most popular party in the country.
The greatest moment in my life was revealing itself. The operation was a success. The voice of Aiwas, one of the secret chiefs and my guardian angel, through Quada, was instructing me that a new dawn was coming for mankind and that I was the one chosen to initiate it.
I am the chosen one.
I was told by Quada to go into my temple on the 8th of April at 12 noon and to write down everything I heard. I followed my instruction.
Locked in his temple, Crowley wrote solidly for 1 hour. The same procedure was followed the next day, and again on the 3rd, until finally the message from Aiwas was complete. What he had written down would later become one of Crowley's most infamous works, known as the Book of the Law, the doctrine which the new order would follow, and Crowley himself would be the chief of that new order. The Beast 666 and his Scarlet Woman Rose. "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law," was probably the most famous line from this book. But there are also within the work prophecies and revelations which would leave even the most skeptic of minds wondering. "And my number is 9 by the fools. My number is 11, as all their numbers who are of us. Hail, ye twin warriors about the pillars of the world, for your time is nigh at hand."
So what do you think of my Trump Home mattress collection by Serta? Finally, the same luxury and comfort I demand in my hotels.
Oh, they'll never count sheep again.
Listen, why don't you come work for me?
What do you have in mind?
Something you were born to do.
Welcome to room 9.
Looking good, number 9, looking good.
Where's your dignity?
For I have crushed an universe, and naught remains. Whoever disregards this does so at his own risk and peril. These are most dire.
Well, I was aware at the time that there existed a certain amount of prophecy in the words of Aiwas. After all, a new eon was coming.
This is the dawn of a new eon. None of us can stand on the sidelines, especially those of us with the power to bend the world to our will.
Supporters of the far-right Golden Dawn have taken to the streets of the Greek capital, Athens, in an anti-immigration protest. Marchers expressed fury at the number of migrants remaining in Greece since the closure of the Balkan route into Europe.
Our country is an open field. Everyone can come whenever they want and they can leave whenever they want. We would like to follow a policy like Donald Trump is doing in the States right now.
A counter anti-fascist march took place at the same time in another part of the city. Police say both groups were kept well apart and clashes were avoided.
Hello to you from a freezing cold Washington, where Donald Trump has been sworn in for a second term as the 47th President of the United States. In his inaugural address, he promised to put America first, and said he'd immediately start signing orders to prevent illegal migration, encourage oil exploitation and scrap government diversity programs, moves that will delight the millions of people who voted for him and send shockwaves right around the world.
It's been a long journey back to the centre of power, overcoming criminal indictments, 1 conviction and 2 assassination attempts to perform the ultimate political comeback. After all that, he was then defeated by his wife's hat, before promising to start a new era in America.
The golden age of America begins right now.
The Order of the Golden Dawn is a mystical organization founded in 1888 by Freemasons William Wynne Westcott, Samuel Liddell McGregor Mathers, and William Robert Woodman. The Order's teachings were based on the Hermetic tradition, which draws on ancient Egyptian and Greek mysticism, as well as the works of Eliphas Levi, the Rosicrucians, and the Kabbalah. The Order's system of initiation is divided into 3 grades: the Outer Order, the Inner Order, and the Secret Order, each with its own set of teachings and rituals. Members must pass through each grade to advance to the next. The Order's rituals are designed to evoke the energies and entities of the spiritual realm, and members work with various spiritual entities to achieve spiritual enlightenment from
your involvement in the Golden Dawn.
Oh, my involvement in the Golden Dawn is in so much as I was very interested actually in Eastern and Western mysticism, and I spent time reading and researching when I was younger. Yeah, I guess that's it. There were some very eminent characters in the Golden Dawn, and I found it very interesting to see the history of those that had been in it, and this sort of esoteric movement, and also sort of what went on, the offshoots of it, of that sort of love of all things mystical and magical, all things bright and beautiful, really.
Making big promises about transforming the country.
A tide of change is sweeping the country. Sunlight is pouring over the entire world. And America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before.
Do you think that's why people did that thing when they played Stairway to Heaven backwards and said that you were talking about Satan?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm going to go straight back to the Beatles here, because there was a time when somebody wrote a thesis about Paul McCartney being dead, and Paul is dead. And if you played back the records, I'm very serious here, it's crazy, but if you played back the records, there was something which said Paul is dead. And so then they started to play back all manner of records, and of course we were going to be main candidates for it. And somebody said, oh, it says My Sweet Satan in it. And I thought, oh gosh, it's hard enough writing the music one way round, I don't know that.
True love for our people requires us to find common ground, to advance the common good, and to cooperate on behalf of every American child who deserves a much brighter future.
Θα πέσετε όμως δημοκρατικά από την πλειοψηφία του ελληνικού λαού. Τότε λοιπόν, αναφέρει το έγκριτο αμερικανικό περιοδικό The Week, πρώτη δύναμη θα είναι η Χρυσή Αυγή στην Ελλάδα. Ο Λαϊκός Σύνδεσμος Χρυσή Αυγή θα είναι πρώτη δύναμη εκλογικά στην Ελλάδα, και αυτό είναι το αισιόδοξο μήνυμα, γιατί ένας τέτοιος πατριωτικός άνεμος πλέει σε όλη την Ευρώπη, πνέει και στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες, όπου προκύπτει ότι ο επόμενος πρόεδρος θα είναι ένας πατριώτης πρόεδρος, ένας πρόεδρος που δεν θέλει λαθρομετανάστες στη χώρα του, που θέλει τους πολίτες κάθε χώρας να είναι κυρίαρχοι στη χώρα αυτή και όχι οι ξένοι. Θα αλλάξουν οι γεωπολιτικές ισορροπίες, και το πιο ενδιαφέρον απ' όλα είναι ότι τον αυριανό πρόεδρο των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών,
An incredible young woman is with us this evening who should serve as an inspiration to us all. Today is Rare Disease Day, and joining us in the gallery is a rare disease survivor, Megan Crowley. Megan Megan was diagnosed with Pompe disease, a rare and serious illness, when she was 15 months old.
Welcome to Pompeii, a city frozen in time, destroyed in a moment, and preserved for eternity. Before its fateful end, Pompeii was a bustling and prosperous city. It was a place of luxury, with beautiful villas, elaborate mosaics, and bustling streets. But on that fateful day in 79 AD, the mighty Mount Vesuvius erupted, sending a cascade of ash and pumice raining down on the city. Homes were buried, streets were engulfed, and life as they knew it came to an end. The eruption was so powerful that it buried the city under 20 feet of ash and pumice. But amidst the tragedy, the city was frozen in time. Today, Pompeii remains one of the world's most renowned archaeological sites, offering a glimpse into the lives of the ancient Romans.
Τον υποστηρίζει στην Ελλάδα μόνο η Χρυσή Αυγή, δηλαδή η τρίτη πολιτική δύναμη της χώρας, και το κόμμα της Νέας Δημοκρατίας, το κόμμα του ΣΥΡΙΖΑ, κυβέρνηση και αντιπολίτευση, συντάσσονται με την Κλίντον, η οποία είναι υπέρ όλων των ανθελληνικών θέσεων, όλων των θέσεων που είναι σε βάρος της Ελλάδος.
She was not expected to live past 5. On receiving this news, Megan's dad, John, fought with everything he had to save the life of his precious child. He founded a company to look for a cure and helped develop the drug that saved Megan's life. Today, she is 20 years old and a sophomore at Notre Dame.
That siren, known by many from the movie The Purge, was not received well by some living in Crowley. Chris Walty spoke to the chief on his decision to sound the siren as a part of the city's curfew.
Crowley Police Chief Jimmy Broussard says he's never seen The Purge, but he knows the sound to be an old military siren. Since the alert Thursday night, the department has received mixed messages about their curfew warning to residents. Ty Abshire was caught off guard when he heard the Purge siren echoing through the streets of Crowley around 9 o'clock Thursday night.
It was just crazy. I knew they had a curfew, but nobody was expecting to hear that kind of siren.
Police Chief Jimmy Broussard says his intent was never to scare anyone.
As we examined it, we didn't want to go through with our regular sirens because we didn't want to create more havoc. And one of the officers who is military approached me and said, well, you know, Chief, there is an old military siren that was used. It was used in the movie Purge, but it's been used for many, many years. And after listening to it, I said, well, it's a more muffled tone. It, wouldn't create to me as much havoc.
March 26th, President Trump approves federal emergency aid for the state of Illinois. James Joseph, FEMA's Regional 5 administrator, moves into action. He says there's a federal plan for every disaster imaginable, including a deadly pandemic.
We're using the playbook, and we're actually writing some new policies along the way.
See this crap? Somebody knows I'm talking to you. Not according to the men in blue. Oh, what is it this time? Kiddie porn again? Sexual battery of a patient. They want to discredit you for what? Because I'm a dangerous man. Because I know too much about the truth. Now that end of the world apocalyptic garbage, you right? You know my work? I was right about Dallas, wasn't I? How were you right? Are you familiar with the hantavirus, Agent Mulder? Yeah, it was a deadly virus spread by field mice in the southwestern United States several years ago. According to the newspaper, FEMA was called out to manage an outbreak of the hantavirus. Are you familiar with what the Federal Emergency Management Agency's real power is? FEMA allows the White House to suspend constitutional government upon declaration of a national emergency. Think about that. What is an agency with such broad sweeping power doing managing a small viral outbreak in suburban Texas? You're saying it wasn't such a small outbreak? No. I'm saying it wasn't the hantavirus. Well, what was it? What was it? When we were young men in the military, your father and I were recruited for a project. They told us it was biological warfare, a virus. What killed those men? What killed them, I won't even write about. We have no context for what killed those men. or any appreciation of the scale at which it'll be unleashed in the future. A plague? The plague to end all plagues, Agent Mulder. A silent weapon for a quiet war. The systematic release of an indiscriminate organism for which the men who will bring it on still have no cure. They've been working on this for 50 years. While the rest of the world have been fighting gooks and commies, these men have been secretly negotiating a planned Armageddon. Negotiating with whom? I think you know. The timetable has been set. It'll happen on a holiday when people are away from their homes. The president will declare a state of emergency, at which time all government, all federal agencies will come under the power of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, the secret government. They call me paranoid. Go back to Dallas, Agent Mulder, and dig. Or we're going to find out along with the rest of the country.
All US states have now been placed under a federal disaster declaration in a record first for the country. President Trump approved Wyoming as the final state to be placed under a disaster declaration, which allows for federal funds to be used by state and local governments during the pandemic. The United States, which has become the world's most affected country, has confirmed more than 540,000 cases and more than 21,000 deaths. President Trump likened the pandemic to the plague during an Easter message.
Right now, we're keeping separation. We're getting rid of the plague. It's a plague on our country like nobody's ever seen. But we're winning the battle. We're winning the war. Celebrate. Bring the family together like no other. We have a lot to be thankful for. Happy Easter, everybody.
We're going to connect the dots for anybody who has ears to hear. Some people are going to want to dispute this, but we're not going to argue with anyone. This is what's going on. There is no Q, there is no anonymous that has any information about this government or anything else that's going on. They have been leading you down a path of lies, all to hide the truth. And here's what's really going on. FEMA has more power than the President of the United States or the Congress. It has the power to suspend laws, move entire populations, arrest and detain citizens without a warrant, and hold them without trial. It can seize property, food supplies, transportation systems, and can suspend the Constitution. When a state of emergency is declared, Executive Order 11921 allows the Federal Emergency Preparedness Agency to develop plans to establish control over the mechanisms of production and distribution of energy sources, wages, salaries, credit, and the flow of money in the U.S. financial institution in any undefined national emergency. It also provides that when a state of emergency is declared by the President, Congress cannot review this action for 6 months. Now, with the understanding that after Trump signed the National Emergency Declaration, FEMA took over. Now, this is March 13th, 2020. Listen to what he's going to say now. This is right after he signed the National Emergency into effect.
It is only the beginning of what we're really doing, and now we're in a different phase.
This is only the beginning of what we're really doing, because what they're really doing is putting everything in place to start the New World Order.
Now we're in a different phase.
The different phase that he's speaking of is that he is no longer president, and he has given full power over to FEMA when he signed the National Emergency Declaration.
We had some very old and obsolete rules.
Those old and obsolete rules are also known as the Constitution of the United States.
That we had to live with. It worked under certain circumstances, but not under mass circumstances. Under mass circumstances is being under FEMA rule. They were there for a long time. They were in place for a long time, and we're breaking them down now.
They're definitely breaking them down because the Constitution is suspended.
And they're very usable for certain instances, but not for this.
Because they can't go forward with their plan with the Constitution, our constitutional rights, still intact.
To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency.
So he is officially telling us in a coded message that we are now under the rule of FEMA, no longer having a president. Fast forward to March 19th, 2020, in the FEMA National Response Coordination Center.
Well, Mr. President, Vice President, thank you for being here. Really appreciate your visit to FEMA. I think your visit really, as you indicated last week, by signing the national emergency, has really empowered FEMA.
And he just made the declaration that FEMA is empowered, has really empowered FEMA.
This is the world you are graduating into. This is what I want to talk about today with you for a few minutes. To lead in shaping a new world order for the 21st century.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
We've got to be very strong, very, very smart, and we've got to come together, not only as a nation, but as a world community.
Some of these people, this is a new normal. They're never going to go back home. So they want to help them as much so that they're never just walking out of here and feeling like they're going back onto the street. They work with them throughout the process here to help them adjust to this new world order that they're going to be living in after this.
Oh, and I imagine there's so many questions, so much concern, and all of those people. It was almost like on cue when you're talking about the army of volunteers. A flock of nuns walked right behind you.
Somebody didn't want the Gray State investigated, explored, and unveiled. That's why David Crowley is dead. He was the writer and director of one of the most controversial movies in modern history, and somebody didn't want him to produce it. What was so threatening about David Crowley and the Gray State concept? Like Gray State, many Hollywood films have depicted apocalyptic themes and end-of-the-world scenarios, yet the directors of these films are still alive. Roland Emmerich wasn't murdered after directing blockbusters 2012 and A Day After Tomorrow. Steven Soderbergh wasn't killed after his movie, Contagion. But David Crowley is dead, along with his wife and child. They were killed before the production could be completed. What was so dangerous about Gray State? David Crowley claimed that his movie was based on real events, not Hollywood propaganda like you see in movies such as 2012.
California is going down!
God, you sound like a crazy person. The governor just said we're fine now.
The guy's an actor! He's reading a script!
So the Gray State is essentially an artistic representation of real aspects put into a fictional format. Once you open your eyes and start looking at all these trends like RFID, like martial law, like FEMA, like executive orders, you have to act within your own capacity to sort of, talk about this. A lot of people filter that into the political realm. A lot of people do other things like grassroots style. I mean, I'm a filmmaker, Danny's an actor. So we put our heads together and we started making a project that would act within our own faculty to portray that in a creative manner. So there's a story here. I have to start telling a story. So I was looking for the next film project to work on anyway. I'm like, well, this would be perfect. And it's not really perfect because you have to kind of filter down all this stuff into a narrative storyline that's not just propaganda telling you what's going to happen next, like 2012 or A Day After Tomorrow. It's got to be a human story, and it's got to be enduring and compelling. The way we're different is we're independent, and we don't expect any participation from any studios just because of its contentious nature. I mean, anyone knows that Hollywood has not approached this topic so directly before. That's what makes Gray State so compelling. It's that different. Definitely the trailer is our best efforts to kind of show this world and expose these very real issues that exist in our world today.
David claims that Hollywood has never dealt with topics like RFID, internment camps in America, and detention. Instead, they have produced propaganda in place of real issues. When Hollywood does discuss internment and detention, it's almost always about World War II and the Holocaust. Literally thousands of films have been produced about the Holocaust, and yet one single film that addresses the potential for a Holocaust in the United States is stopped mid-production after its director is murdered. Seems a bit odd, doesn't it? They don't want Americans, Canadians, and other Western countries to know what is coming. And that is a plan to intentionally collapse Western society. If you don't believe me, read the plan that's been in the books for over a century. Planned out by the Illuminati and penned by Albert Pike back in the 1800s in his 3 World War predictions. Gray State was simply too threatening. It revealed too much, not just the obvious points of what could happen with the collapse of a society, things like martial law, food shortages, and a provisional government. It goes beyond this. David knew a secret, and he left it inside of the trailer for Gray State, in plain sight. David Crowley used the Illuminati's favorite game against the notorious Cabal. It's a game they've played with the human race for years. They provide clues about the future to toy with us. They did it with 9/11. They've done it with other major catastrophes. It's called predictive programming. On occasion, though, they get outsmarted at their own game. What was David's hidden message inside the Gray State? And could it be the reason for his death? Perhaps the scariest part of Gray State's conceptual trailer is this character here, who appears to be operating a guillotine. David Crowley was very intentional in this frame of the movie. He added something that I believe he wanted the people to know about. Who is the identity of this executioner? If you look closely, you will see that this terrifying character is wearing something around his waist. It appears to look like an apron. The executioner wears a Freemason apron, complete with the all-seeing eye, the compass, and the 2 pillars. I do believe David Crowley is trying to tell us something.
为什么强大的国家都会走向灭亡呢？古希腊、罗马帝国、不列颠帝国、美国，因为他们都犯同样的错误，与原来使得他们成功的原则背道而驰。美国政府企图以庞大的开支和税收来摆脱严重的经济衰退，巨额的所谓刺激开支。庞大的医疗改革，政府接管私有企业，债务累累。当然，我们是他们的大债主。现在他们都得给我们干活。
You can change the future. You have to. Join Citizens Against Government Waste to stop the spending that is bankrupting America.
Fast forward to April 10th, 2020. In plain words, it's been my great honor to have been their president. Past tense.
The American people have been so disciplined. It's been my honor to be their president. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'll say it always. It's been my great honor to have been their president, and it's been my great honor to have been their president and have been their president, have been their president. I have a big decision coming up, and I only hope to God that it's the right decision, but it'll be based on the input from a lot of very talented people, very smart people, and people that love our country. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.
He actually will not be making any more decisions. This group of people that he says will be helping him make decisions are the ones that are making decisions now, because it is FEMA that is making the decisions. And as you can hear in this live briefing, Trump obviously does not know what's going on, because he said, you should have let us know, when Mike Pompeo said, we're in a live exercise, a live exercise.
Pompeo says this is a live exercise. And what you'll hear in the background is Donald Trump say, you should have let us know.
This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here. to get this right. We need to make sure that even we're in a live exercise here to get this right. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We're in a live exercise here to get this right.
Does he sound like a man that's in control of anything anymore? He just looks like he has just lost his best friend in all of these videos that we're seeing now ever since he signed the National Emergency Declaration. I'm sure most of us thought that FEMA was created to help people in disasters. But here's the truth about FEMA. FEMA was created in a series of executive orders. A presidential executive order, whether constitutional or not, becomes law simply by its publication in the Federal Registry. Congress is bypassed. Executive Order 12148 created the Federal Emergency Management Agency that is to interface with the Department of Defense for civil defense planning and funding. An emergency czar was appointed. Executive Order 12656 appointed the National Security Council as the principal body that should consider emergency powers. This allows the government to increase domestic intelligence and surveillance of U.S. citizens and would restrict the freedom of movement within the United States and grant the government the right to isolate large groups of civilians. That's where we're at right now, people. We are all being told what to do, where we can and can't go. The National Guard could be federalized to seal all borders and take control of U.S. airspace and all ports of entry. Executive Order 10990 allows the government to take over all modes of transportation and control of highways and seaports. Executive Order 10995 allows the government to seize and control the communications media. Executive Order 10997 allows the government to take over all electrical power, gas, petroleum, fuels, and minerals. Executive Order 10998 allows the government to take over all food resources and farms. Executive Order 11000 allows the government to mobilize civilians into work brigades under government supervision. Executive Order 11001 allows the government to take over all health, education, and welfare functions. Executive Order 11002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. That's where your census comes in. Executive Order 11003 allows the government to take over all airports and aircraft, including commercial aircraft. Executive Order 11004 allows the Housing and Finance Authority to relocate communities, build new housing with public funds, designate areas to be abandoned, and establish new locations for populations. Executive Order 11005 allows the government to take over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities. Executive Order 11051 specifies the responsibility of the Office of Emergency Planning and gives authorization to put all executive orders into effect in times of increased international tensions and economic or financial crisis. Executive Order 11310 grants authority to the Department of Justice to enforce the plans set out in executive orders, to institute industrial support, to establish judicial and legislative liaison, to control all aliens, to operate penal and correctional institutions. And Executive Order 11049 assigns emergency preparedness function to federal departments and agencies, consolidating 21 operative executive orders issued over a 15-year period.
I had been to Puyallup a few times when it was the fairgrounds of Western Washington. Little did I know that I would replace the pigs and the cows and that type of stuff, you know, because they restructured the fairgrounds and the parking lots into these temporary hovels. And they had a hell of a lot of nerve calling it Camp Harmony. But anyway, it was, it was a real traumatic type of living, where you're in the former stalls where the pigs and the cows and everything else were. families of 6 and 7 were crowded into one little spot.
Santa Anita Racetrack, for example, suddenly became a community of about 17,000 persons. The Army provided housing and plenty of healthful, nourishing food for all.
The government painted a rosy picture of these detention centers and downplayed the prison-like conditions, calling imprisoned people evacuees, residents, and even colonists. After a few months, detainees were transferred to 10 long-term camps across the country. These were in remote areas on unused desert or swampland.
At each relocation center, evacuees were met by an advanced contingent of Japanese who had arrived some days earlier and who now acted as guides.
Officially, they were called relocation centers, but many, including President Roosevelt, commonly called them concentration camps.
Relocation centers are not normal and probably never can be. Home life is disrupted.
Although government films acknowledged that life was not ideal, they never addressed the injustice of the camps. 2/3 of those incarcerated were U.S. citizens, and there were no hearings or trials held to determine if they did anything wrong or were dangerous.
We are Americans, part of something larger than ourselves. For 2 centuries, we've done the hard work of freedom, and tonight we lead the world in facing down a threat to decency and humanity. What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. Such is a world worthy of our struggle and worthy of our children's future.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Hopefully this has opened some of your eyes so that you can see where we're at in this timeline. This is true. This is what's going on. These are facts. Y'all have a blessed day.
Oh, shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in.
I'm the hand of Mona Lisa's skirt. I'm a surprise, Kevin. They don't see me coming. That's what you're missing.
Then his other hand went up inside my skirt.
Somebody I want you to meet. Kevin and Marianne Lomax. This is Senator Alphonse D'Amato, Ambassador Charles Gagano. In case you didn't know, these are the Republicans of New York. You know, Barjoon always overstates things.
Donald Trump was supposed to be here tonight, but he had a business emergency. Probably Mark Zuckerman.
In case you didn't know, these are the Republicans of New York. You know, Barjoon always overstates things.
Donald Trump was supposed to be here tonight, but he had a business emergency. Probably Mark Zuckerman.
Mr. Murdo?
You're right.
Mr. Murdo? For God's sake, man.
Every time I think about Trump, I get allergic.
Why do we have to keep going?
Because it needs to be clear, Mr. Cullen. Because I need to know and understand exactly what happened. You're standing there. You look down. There's the gun.
You kneel down to pick it up?
You work late, you come home, you walk in, everybody's dead. It's not something you planned for.
Stop. Back up. 2 prints by the gun. Right hand, right knee. Right knee.
We have been over this.
I'm trying to picture it. I'm trying to picture it. Your hand came from inside and underneath.
I'm the hand of Mona Lisa's skirt.
Then his other hand went up inside my skirt.
Why do I feel the hand of Mary Ann on this adventure?
The person on my right, who unbeknownst to me at that time was Donald Trump, put their hand up my skirt.
Your hand came from inside and underneath.
I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the...
You ever ask God for forgiveness? That's a tough question. I don't think in terms of, I'm a religious person. Shockingly, because people are so shocked when they find this out. I'm Protestant, I'm Presbyterian, and I go to church and I love God and I love my church. And Norman Vincent Peale, the great Norman Vincent Peale was my pastor. The power of positive thinking. Everybody's heard of Norman Vincent Peale. He was so great. He would give a sermon you never wanted to leave. Sometimes we have sermons and every once in a while we think about leaving a little early, right, even though we're Christian. Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, Frank, would give a sermon. I'm telling you, I still remember his sermons. It was unbelievable. And what he would do is he'd bring real life situations, modern day situations, into the sermon. And you could listen to him all day long. When you left the church, you were disappointed that it was over. He was the greatest guy. And then, you know, he passed away, but he was a great... He wrote The Power of Positive Thinking, which is a great book.
But have you ever asked God for forgiveness?
I'm not sure I have. I just go and try and do a better job from there. I don't think so. I think if I do something wrong, I think I just try and make it right.
Does that explain it, folks? Does that explain?
Trust in me.
A future that Ernest Cline, the writer of the book, envisioned. I was very careful with Ernie collaborating with me every step of the way to be able to find the movie narrative inside this dense forest of Ernie's profound imagination.
The Oasis being the ultimate toy box with all the toys in the world, and then playing that with one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. It results in just amazing action and such a fun adventure.
Ernest Cline is such a visionary, and I think has seen the future before any of us possibly could even imagine it.